My name is Jason Carter. And 6 months ago, I was a rising star in one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Silicon Valley. I'd built something revolutionary. A decentralized AI-driven logistics algorithm that could cut costs across global supply chains by 40%. The prototype worked flawlessly. I called it PulseNet. It was clean, elegant, fast, and it was mine. Or so I thought. My boss, Nathan Cross, CEO of Crossbridge Innovations, saw things differently. He smiled to my face, laughed at my jokes, bought me scotch at investor mixers, while telling everyone I was the next Elon. But all along, he was watching. Waiting for the moment he could take everything from me, and not just my work. He took my wife too. I just didn't see it coming. When I joined Crossbridge, I left behind a comfortable position at IBM. I was hungry, restless, tired of bureaucracy. I wanted to build something real. I pitched PulseNet to Nathan at a conference in Miami over cheap tequila and a napkin sketch. He loved it. Said it could be a billion-dollar product. He gave me a team, a lab, a ridiculous salary, and promised co-founder credit when we went public. I worked day and night, skipped birthdays, anniversaries. I told myself it was temporary, that success would fix everything. Melissa, my wife, supported me at first, but she grew distant over time. I figured she was just tired of me being absent. I had no idea she was confiding in Nathan. 3 weeks ago, PulseNet passed its final security audit. Our demo for investors was set. Nathan said the board was ecstatic. We were poised to raise $120 million in Series B funding. I should have been celebrating, but something felt off. My access logs showed Nathan had downloaded parts of the codebase at 2:43 a.m. on a Sunday, and Melissa had started wearing lipstick again, something she hadn't done in months. I confronted her. She said I was paranoid, working too much. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But deep down, I knew. 2 days ago, Nathan called me into his office. Slicked hair, fake smile, and the company lawyer sitting beside him. I already knew what was coming before he spoke. "Jason," he said, "you've done great work. But unfortunately, your contract states that any IP developed using company resources is owned by Crossbridge." He slid a termination letter across the desk. I didn't touch it. "You're letting me go?" I asked, even though I already knew. "You'll be compensated," he said. $250,000 severance. We'll take it from here." I stared at him, then at the lawyer. "Is this because of Melissa?" I asked quietly. He didn't flinch. "That's not relevant," he said. The room spun, but I stayed calm. Years of work, stolen. Just like that. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I had expected this. I had seen the signs. I had prepared a trap not just in the code but in the presentation itself. I stood up, handed him my laptop, said, "Good luck tomorrow." As security escorted me out, I smiled. PulseNet had already activated a buried protocol inside the demo suite, a recursive loop masked as a harmless stress test. But at the 10th minute, it would rewrite the server environment into chaos. Every slide, every animation, every line of demo code would collapse, along with a little gift. One internal file dump, anonymously forwarded to our top 3 investors. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't rage. I ordered Thai food, watched reruns of Breaking Bad, and waited. My phone buzzed at 9:11 p.m. It was Melissa. No message, just a missed call. I didn't pick up. At 9:34, Nathan's assistant called. "He wants to see you," she said flatly. "Why?" I asked. "Something went wrong with the investor demo," she replied. "Badly wrong." I let the silence hang. "A car's on its way," she added, and hung up. 40 minutes later, I was back in the Crossbridge headquarters. The lights were on, but the place felt cold, hollow, like it had already died. Nathan was waiting in the war room. No lawyer this time, no charm either. He looked like hell. Shirt unbuttoned, hair disheveled, sweat on his forehead. "Fix it," he barked the second I walked in. "Fix what?" I asked, sitting slowly across from him. His jaw clenched. You sabotaged the presentation. I tilted my head. I've been gone for 24 hours, I said. Security watched me leave. I didn't take a thing. The investors walked out, he snapped. The software flagged our own servers as compromised. Half the slides glitched. The rest, total corruption. And then it started uploading files we've never even seen. That's weird, I said flatly. Almost like the system was trying to warn someone. His eyes burned through me. You did this, he whispered. I shrugged. I just built the AI, Nathan. It's not my fault if it finally saw the threat. His lip curled with hate. You smug little... But he stopped himself. Exhaled. Tried to calm down. Then he tried the other play. Listen, he said, voice lowering. Maybe we overreacted yesterday. Maybe there's still a way to work this out. Co-creator credit odd equity. Whatever you want. I looked at him for a long second. What exactly happened during the demo? I asked. He hesitated, then said, it wasn't just the software. The investors, they saw emails, Jason, personal emails, from you, from me, from Melissa. He looked sick. Private stuff. Nothing's private to an AI trained to eliminate threats, I said. PulseNet learned from us, Nathan. It learned from what we did, not just what we told it to do. His face went pale. He knew what that meant. He wasn't just losing a product. He was losing control. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, I said coldly. You're going to publicly reinstate me as PulseNet's sole creator. You're going to give me 51% of the intellectual property rights, a CTO title, a public apology, and $10 million in damages. You're out of your mind, he spat. I smiled. No. I'm just done being loyal to people who feed on others. I pulled a flash drive from my coat and set it on the table. This will reset the AI and restore the system, for now. Take it or leave it. But if you leave it, that data dump will finish uploading in 30 minutes. And let's just say, your investors will see a side of you even your lawyers can't sanitize. Nathan stared at the drive for a long time. Silence stretching. Something inside him broke. He reached for it. Quiet. Defeated. You planned this all along, he muttered. I stood. No, I said. I hoped I wouldn't have to. As I turned to leave, he asked one last question. How did you know I'd do it? That I'd take your work? That I'd... He trailed off. Because I trusted you, I said. And the thing about trust is, when it breaks, it's never a surprise. Just a confirmation. The next morning, I walked into Crossbridge headquarters, not as an ex-employee, but as its newly appointed Chief Technology Officer and 51% intellectual property holder of PulseNet. Nathan introduced me to the investors with a plastic smile so tight it could crack his face. He didn't mention the scandal, not the emails, not the late-night code theft, not the affair with Melissa. Just my name, Jason Carter, and a rehearsed sentence about welcoming back a visionary mind who was instrumental in shaping our future. I let him talk. Then I stepped forward and took over the room. The demo, with the proper authentication protocols in place, ran flawlessly. PulseNet adapted in real time, intercepting simulated threats before they could form. It detected latency spikes before they became bottlenecks, flagged algorithmic anomalies with surgical accuracy. An older investor with silver hair leaned forward halfway through, his eyes wide. Who designed this logic engine? He asked. Nathan hesitated. I didn't. That would be me, I said clearly. The foundational algorithms were written 3 years ago before I joined Crossbridge. They're mine. PulseNet was born in my apartment, not a corporate lab. The investor nodded slowly, then looked at Nathan. A look I recognized. It was the same one Nathan used to give when pretending to respect someone. After the demo, they offered a round of congratulations. Some asked for dinner reservations, others for a tour of our engineering floor. I answered every question, stayed composed. Smiled even while Nathan seethed beside me like a dog forced to watch its prey get away. I didn't care. This wasn't revenge yet. This was reclamation. Melissa called me again that night, twice. No voicemail. No apology. I didn't pick up. The truth is, I didn't hate her. I hated what she became when power entered the room. She chose security over love. A man who could promise a penthouse instead of a partner who worked late nights building something from nothing. I guess some people aren't in love with you. They're in love with your potential. 2 days later, Nathan tried again. Jason, he said in my new office. Look, we're on the same team now. Let's put the past behind us. He handed me a pen and a revised draft of our founders' agreement. I read it, quietly. You removed the clause giving me final say on tech partnerships, I said flatly. It's just standard, he replied. The board? I am the board now, I cut in. 51% means I don't need your permission. His face twitched for a second before he caught himself. You really think you can run this without me? He said, voice low. You think the investors are loyal to you? I stood. They're not loyal to either of us, Nathan. They're loyal to results, and I produce them. You lie. That night, I accessed the full PulseNet archives, a few keystrokes, and there it was. Every unauthorized access Nathan made to the codebase. Time-stamped, logged, documented. Including the night he downloaded my personal GitHub repo onto a Crossbridge machine. And right below it, communications flagged as non-business, emails between Melissa and Nathan, explicit ones, files the AI had categorized as interpersonal risk indicators. PulseNet didn't just find security breaches, it understood loyalty, human loyalty. It wasn't a sabotage tool. It was a mirror. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sick. The next day, I called an emergency board meeting. Nathan didn't know until he walked in and saw 5 investors waiting for him, not one of them smiling. I brought up the internal risk reports. Some of these findings, I said, suggest serious breaches, not just of trust, but of federal compliance. I laid down the facts, slide by slide, timestamp by timestamp. Nathan tried to speak, tried to spin it. We were still in internal development, he stammered. Jason's interpretation, the AI's interpretation, I corrected. I didn't write these conclusions. PulseNet did. He crumbled in real time. The board members didn't even argue. They voted to suspend him from all decision-making roles pending legal review. One of them, a woman from San Francisco who never said much, looked Nathan straight in the eye and said, "You're the kind of man who thinks loyalty is weakness. That's why you lost." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Later that evening, Nathan cornered me in the parking garage. His tie was gone, eyes bloodshot. "You're ruining me," he said. I leaned against my car door. "You ruined yourself," I said back. "I just showed everyone what you did." He stepped closer. "You think they're gonna stick with you?" he hissed. "They're just waiting to sell the company. You're not special." I smiled. "Maybe," I said. "But they trust me enough to let me finish what I started. Can you say the same?" He stared at me, then turned and walked into the darkness, like he had nowhere left to go. Melissa showed up at my door 3 days later. No makeup, no expensive coat, just her, with a look I hadn't seen in over a year. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I didn't answer. "He told me you were leaving the company," she added. "Said you gave up on it. On us." I still didn't speak. She stepped forward. "Jason, I didn't know who to believe." Now I looked at her. "You chose him before I had a chance to explain," I said softly. "Not just once. Again and again." She teared up. "Can we talk?" "We just did," I said, and closed the door. Inside, I looked at my reflection in the window, the city lights blinking like old memories. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was finally awake. I built something no one could steal anymore. Not because I guarded it with lawyers or NDAs, but because it knew me, because it was me. PulseNet had learned to see betrayal the way I had, quiet, cold, and inevitable. And more importantly, it had learned to survive it. At the next investor round, I stood alone this time. No Nathan, no distraction, just me and the thing I built. I told them our roadmap. Integration with military logistics. Streamlined humanitarian response systems. An ethical kill switch framework to ensure no misuse. I wasn't just selling software anymore. I was selling resilience. The room went silent, then erupted into applause. When I walked out of that meeting, I wasn't just the CTO anymore. I was the soul of the company, the heart that kept beating after being ripped out and buried. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. 3 weeks passed. The dust had mostly settled. Nathan was officially removed from Crossbridge by unanimous vote. His shares were frozen pending investigation. He'd hired a PR firm to try and salvage his image, but it was already too late. PulseNet had not only exposed his theft, it had predicted it. Every investor, developer, and journalist now knew the truth. I wasn't just the architect of a new technology. I was the one who survived the kill shot and walked out stronger. But not everyone was happy with that. One night, after a long meeting with the Department of Defense, who were now evaluating PulseNet for national infrastructure protection, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing was missing. No signs of forced entry. Just a USB drive placed carefully in the center of my kitchen table. No note. No explanation. I plugged it in cautiously. An audio file played, a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. "Jason, you need to stop." It was Melissa. "Nathan's not done. He says you destroyed his future, and now he's going to destroy yours." The recording clicked off. My jaw clenched. It wasn't fear I felt. It was clarity. This wasn't about business anymore. This was personal. The next morning, I reviewed PulseNet's external monitoring feeds. It had flagged suspicious activity around one of our backup data nodes in Nevada. Remote access attempts from an unknown device. 2 tries. Failed both times. But the signature matched one of Nathan's old devices. His digital fingerprints were still on the system. Like he couldn't let go. Like he needed to prove he could still reach me. I activated the AI's countermeasures. No retaliation. Just observation. Let him come closer. Let him think I didn't notice. Then trap him where it hurt the most. A week later, he made his move. A fake data leak surfaced online. Heavily edited lines of PulseNet code posted to a dark web forum with a fake timestamp, trying to imply I had stolen it from another firm. I got a call at 2 a.m. from a Washington legal advisor warning me of a potential investigation. I stayed calm. PulseNet had already tracked the upload before it went live, recorded the VPN route, reconstructed the browser agent string, and identified Nathan's throwaway device in less than 7 minutes. I didn't even have to lift a finger. But I did anyway. I sent a single email to Nathan. A single line. "You're still underestimating me." Attached was a system-generated dossier. PulseNet had compiled a full timeline of his activities since termination. Every burner device, anonymous login, ghost server, deep fake test. All tracked and cataloged by the AI he helped betray. No threats, no accusations, just truth. A digital mirror he couldn't crack. He didn't reply. Instead, 3 days later, I got a subpoena. His legal team was accusing me of manipulating investor data and illegally accessing his private communications. A desperate move. A loud one. But I was ready. In court, I let PulseNet speak. I showed the logs, the timestamps, the chain of custody. Even Melissa's messages, painful as they were, proved I hadn't fabricated anything. The judge read them silently, then looked up and said, "Mr. Carter, do you have any comment?" I nodded once. "Only this," I said. "People talk about AI like it's a threat, but they forget something. AI isn't the threat. It's the record, it's the truth, and it remembers everything." The courtroom was silent. Nathan's face looked like melted stone. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. But it was over, even before the gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked me, "Is it justice?" I paused. "It's not revenge," I said. "It's protection. And sometimes, those look the same." 3 months later, the world changed. PulseNet was no longer just a startup tool or investor demo. It was integrated into 3 federal systems, 5 Fortune 500 companies, and 1 international humanitarian logistics network. The same lines of code Nathan once tried to steal were now protecting lives, saving millions, and detecting corruption faster than any audit ever could. I became a headline overnight. But behind the accolades, the panels, the magazine covers, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt aware. Aware of how close I'd come to losing everything. Not just my startup, not just my reputation, but my own sense of self. I kept Melissa's last message saved in a file I never opened again. Not because I missed her, but because it reminded me what betrayal looks like when it wears the face of someone you once trusted. She'd moved to Los Angeles. Started a podcast about emotional healing. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't hate her anymore. But I would never forgive her either. Not because of the affair, but because she stayed silent when it mattered most. Nathan, meanwhile, was done. His assets were seized by court order after PulseNet's audit logs confirmed insider trading before our Series B round. He'd sold info to a competitor 3 weeks before I was fired. The same competitor who tried to poach my engineers after the scandal broke. They failed. Most of them had already left for me. The rest? The system flagged their resignations before they even announced them. Because PulseNet didn't just protect companies anymore. It protected intent. It saw patterns, language shifts, keystroke timing, even stress behavior through biometric sensors built into our dev hardware. It wasn't surveillance. It was intuition. At scale, and I was the only one who understood it deeply enough to keep it grounded. Some said I should sell. Microsoft offered me $1.2 billion outright. One of the VCs who watched Nathan's fall offered to triple that if I agreed to embed PulseNet in military drones. I declined both. I hadn't built a weapon. I'd built armor. Not to attack, but to endure. And no amount of money could convince me to turn it into something it wasn't. At our 1-year anniversary demo, I stood before an audience of CEOs, generals, nonprofits, and college students. My palms didn't sweat this time. My voice didn't shake. I walked them through PulseNet's future, predictive threat management for climate crises, supply chain optimization in disaster zones, real-time monitoring of ethical violations in high-risk sectors. I didn't talk like a programmer anymore. I talked like a builder, a survivor, a man who had crawled out of the grave his enemies dug for him, and turned the dirt into foundation. At the end of my speech I paused, then said, "People ask me all the time what PulseNet really does. Is it software? Is it surveillance? Is it an AI watchdog? No. It's simpler than that. PulseNet tells the truth. Not just the truth you give it, but the one you try to hide. Because the truth isn't just data, it's decisions, it's intentions. It's how we behave when we think no one's watching. And if the people running the world don't fear that kind of truth, maybe they should." The room went quiet. Then someone stood, clapped, then another, then all of them. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. "You won. Congratulations. No name. Just that." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The next morning, I met with the ethics team I'd personally assembled. Every PulseNet deployment would now require an independent oversight committee. No exceptions. I didn't trust systems without integrity. Not anymore. And I damn sure wouldn't let the thing I built fall into the hands of someone like Nathan again. By the end of that quarter, our valuation hit $3.4 billion. I owned 51%, but more importantly, I owned myself, my time, my code, my story. No one could rewrite it. No one could edit it out. People always ask what it feels like to win after being betrayed, to rise after being dragged under, to look your enemies in the eye and know they can't touch you anymore. I'll tell you this. It doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like air. Clean, quiet, unmistakably yours. The kind you only breathe after holding it too long, waiting for someone to steal it. So here's what I'll leave you with. You will be underestimated. You will be betrayed. People you love will stand beside the people who hurt you. You'll watch them choose power over principle, comfort over character. And it will hurt. But if you survive it, if you build through it, you'll become untouchable. Not because you're perfect, but because you know who you are. And that's something no one can take. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have walked away, fought back in court, burned the whole thing down? Let me know in the comments. Because your story, your betrayal, your comeback, it matters. And if no one ever told you this before, let me be the first. Protect what you build. Protect your name. Protect your vision. Because they'll come for it the moment it threatens their comfort. But when they do, be ready. Not to break, but to rise. If this story meant something to you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about survival, truth, and power. This was Jason Carter. And this was never about revenge. It was always about reclaiming what was mine.